Right, so I've done a few of these rebuilds in the past, and I have to admit, the most annoying part of it is trying to get to this little air screw in here. Now, I was fortunate enough to get the tool from the previous owner, and it's very difficult to see. I'll see if I can try and get a bit of a focal point on it. But within that, it's literally just I think this will be easier to show you now. Literally just a circular type bolt with a little triangular notch in it just over there, and it's, I've tried to get pliers down there, all sorts. Now I promise you now, every single time I've done one of these, if you don't clean the air screw out, it won't run. There's something that blocks up in there, and I tell you what, it's an absolute nightmare to get at. So I'll pull it out quickly so you can sort of see what I'm talking about. Hold that in position and get that nicely seated. Oh, there we go. I think I'm in now. Let me just, try and get a bit more. There we go. Nicely seated now. And I think I'm getting pretty close to getting it out. And now, let's see if it zooms in on that. It's actually not looking too bad. You normally get quite a bit of build up on the top there. Then it's like rust and crap, and you can't really see inside there. I'll see if I can get a bit of light. But yeah, so literally once I've taken it apart, just compressed air or contact cleaner everywhere. You can buy the gasket kits, but unfortunately, to work out which gasket kit you got, unless you get you've got a line straight to the dealership, it's worth basically just getting the gasket kits out, trying a full rebuild and a cleanup, reassemble, but take photos while it's all out, and then scan the older eBay, Amazon, whatever it is, for ideally as close to your name brand and type of motor you've got. Once you got that, then what you can do is you can match it up and then they get a kit sent out. Now I had a kit sent out from the Chineses, and you know, basically for £1.79 you've got yourself a kit. So I'll pull that out in a second. Right, so gasket kit with the new pressure bubble gaskets, diaphragms, even float needles and all that sort of stuff. So you're getting quite a lot for £1.79, and bearing in mind if you're trying to get an original of these, you know, you're up in the 30 or 10, 20 or 30 quid. So I chucked this in the just gave this a bit of a Brillo cleanup, and it's come up quite nicely. So I reckon air screw's done, and I'll strip this thing down now and get you some more images. So just a couple of little tips when you're taking it apart. There's 4 screws this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's 2 more over here, 1 and 2. But to get to this one, you have to be able to let the butterfly valve come down. And funnily enough, the same special tool that adjusts the air screw is also the same one that basically adjusts your idle adjustment. And as you can see, as I start doing that, it's exposing the screw so I can access that. So that's now done. You know, it might be worth remembering where you set the setting to, but then at the same time you've got to bear in mind that adjustment will have been accommodating whatever problems you were having with the carb up until now. If you had no problems, then clearly that'd be fine, but I would assume that if you're taking the carb apart, unless you're a fastidious small motors maintainer, and this is, you know, you do this on a regular basis, then I reckon you probably don't need to watch this video, and secondly, you know, you will have been all over where your settings are. Okay, so as I start pulling it apart, this is the essentially the priming pump. That breaks down into 2 parts. So you've got your steel part that holds the bubble diaphragm, or not diaphragm, but the pressure, whatever you want to call it, on there. And then you've got the valve body, and then in that you'll have the diaphragm over here, and under the diaphragm you will have a oh, it's a bit that's on there. I'd say the key thing also, whenever you're doing any of this, is make sure that when you assemble it again, use fresh fuel. Don't put the old fuel in, because if you have had fuel that's sat there for a while, that could just be just enough that it won't allow it to do its thing. I'll get you a better shot there. I'll try and see if I can keep it in line. There we go. And yeah, you don't clearly want to be tearing any diaphragms, and bear in mind that this is actually a gasket and the diaphragm to make up one essential system. You'll notice you can't go too far wrong lining them up, because there's two holes, and then clearly that would have to line up with that. So when it goes back on, it's fairly easy to get right. Then from there, this goes on to the main jet. That's essentially your throttle butterfly valve, and it's just got essentially a basic needle inside that comes out. When you rotate it, it allows it to it basically exposes the hole here, and allows it will give you full bore. Then inside here, that's where your main jet would be. So obviously once we've got it apart, we're going to give that a good spray and clean. And then you are into the final parts of the carb. When you get to here, it's obviously spring loaded, and then there's another sort of diaphragm gasket over here, and these are all provided in the kit. And like I say, the key thing really is take photos of it while it's apart and all laid out, and then what you can do is you can match it up with the kits that are available. Now interestingly, this one was a slightly bit more difficult to get a hold of, but it all comes once you match the shape up. They're actually they're pretty decent to put back together. I'll just put all of these in a place where you can all see them. So that is your parts that you're looking at. Now the spring there, that one there, that just sits in that detent over there, and then so clearly the part that's bulbous on this diaphragm would sit on that side there. Now the key thing really now, grab some contact cleaner, clean everything, go through the orifices, spray them all out. Just be a little bit careful with this one, because obviously, well, that's the float needle, and it's and basically you don't want to get that bent in any way with the pressure of if you're using compressed air. So just be a little bit careful in that neck of the woods. The other thing you want to do is check, you can take the screw out there. There's a spring underneath here. It's a bit fiddly to put it all back together, but once it's done, then that whole neck of the woods should be clean. And I would just literally go through all of the little things, spray some contact cleaner in, give it a good spray out, and then we'll start looking at assembly. Right, so that's all clean, gone through. Just another heads up, hope you haven't gone too far, but in here there's like a little wire gauze filter. You do normally get a replacement in with the gasket set. Make sure that whenever you're spraying things in, either remove it before you do it, or you just basically put pressure and make sure your fingers over that.